أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه تسليما كثيرا رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Inshallah, this session we'll talk about the religions of the Arabs, which is basically the third chapter of this book. In the last chapter, we discussed about the rulership of Arabia in the southern part, Yemen, northern part, northeastern part, Hira, Hijaz, and the northwestern part, which is the king of Ghassans. In this chapter, inshallah, we'll talk about different religions of Arabs. So in the previous chapter, we talked about the Judaism and Christianity in detail. So we'll not talk about those religions again in this chapter, but we'll talk about the polytheism, which is which was the main religion of Arabia at that time. So most of the Arabs had basically the follower of Ismail alayhi salam and Ibrahim alayhi salam. And the call of Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam, what they worshipped Allah, professed His oneness, and followed His religion. So they were basically the followers of Ismail alayhi salam, and they were the monotheist. So what went wrong? How they became the polytheist? So initially in the first generation, second generation, they were basically Muslims and they were following the same religion as Islam. But later on, as the time passes by, they start adding some bid'ah, some innovation in the religion. But overall, the deen of Ismail alayhi salam was kept intact. The body of Islam, the body of deen of Ismail alayhi salam was kept intact. So there were no major diversion from the deen of Ismail or deen of Ibrahim alayhi salam. But after Banu Khuza'a took over from Banu Jurhum, the chief of Banu Khuza'a, which was Amr bin Luhay al-Khuza'i, he was a very righteous person. He was very famous. He was politically very powerful. He had all the powers in Quraysh and Makkah, political and religious, and people used to see towards him for the guidance, and he was very generous as well. So he went to Syria for trade, and he saw there the people are prostrating and they were in front of the idols, and he liked the idea because they had idols for everything. They had idol for the war, they had idol for food, for famine, for rain, for everything. So he liked the idea. He said, okay, why not I bring that idol to my land, and people worship that idol and people ask from him. So he brought the idol from Syria and installed it right next to the Kaaba, and asked his people to worship that idol. That the name of the idol was Hubal. And people, as expected, they were there. He was the chief of Banu Khuza'a at that time, Makkah, and they accepted him his call, and they started worshipping those idols. And since Makkah at that time was the custodian of Kaaba, and the people who were living, or the ruler of Makkah, they were the custodian of Kaaba, and they were basically the religious, they had the religious authority. So all people around the Arabia, they used to see towards the people of Makkah or Quraysh at that time for religious guidance. So when they saw that the people of Makkah are going for the idols and worshipping them, so they started their own idol. They started rather Meccan people start to export those idols. They start making those idols and they start exporting those idols. So all around them they start sending idols in different part of Arabia. For example, an idol called Manat, it was the idol they was worshipped in a place known as Al-Mushallal near Qadid on the Red Sea. So it is a very famous idol, Manat, that was on that part of the eastern part of Arabia. Another, Al-Lat, that was in Taif. A third idol, Al-Uzza, in the valley of Nakhla. And polytheism was prevailed, and the number of idols increased everywhere in Hijaz. It was also even mentioned that Amr bin Luhay, with the help of a jinn companion, they went to the jinn who told him that the idols of Noah's folk, Wad, Suwa, Yaghuth, Ya'uq, and Nasr, was buried in Jeddah. So a jinn told him that the idols of Nuh alayhi salam, or the people of Nuh alayhi salam, they were buried in that part of the world, in that part of Arabia. So they went there and dug them out. So who were that idol? Wad, Suwa, Yaghuth, Ya'uq, and Nasr. They were basically the righteous people of the follower of Nuh alayhi salam. So what happened when those people died, the follower of those people, or rather the second or third generation, they used to like them, and since they were righteous people, so shaitan inspired them that why don't you make a statue for them, so that they remind you of, and their teachings are reminded to you through those idols or through those statues. So those people made statues of those righteous people, Wad, Suwa, Ya'uz, Ya'uq, and Nasr, and initially they just kept reminding them. For those people, it was a reminder for them to be on the straight path. But after third, fourth, fifth generation, initially they start touching them, they start asking for help, they start doing different things, but finally they start worshipping those idols. So this is the game of shaitan. Shaitan never tells you directly that worship idol. He tells you to deviate 1 degree from the right path, and 1 degree from right path now will end up misguide you completely later on. So this is the game of shaitan. Similarly, what happens here, initially there were small innovations in the deen. So people thought this is just a small innovation, good innovation rather, so why bother, just let it go. But after some time, when second or third generation, they were really misguided. They went far away from the deen, from the actual deen, which happens all the time. That's why the innovation in deen, innovation in Islam is forbidden completely. There is a hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Kullu muhdathatin bid'ah wa kullu bid'atin dalalah wa kullu dalalatin fin-nar." Every innovation is misguidance, and every misguidance takes you to hellfire. That's how strictly Islam forbids the innovation. And even one famous person said, Sufyan as-Suri said, innovation is more beloved to Iblis than sin, ma'asiyah, because that who commits sin may repent one day, but the innovator, or the person who is committing bid'ah, he thinks he's doing the right thing. He thinks that he's going into the right direction, and he never repents. So that's why innovation is really, really dangerous, and it always takes you way away from the deen, from the actual teachings. And this is the case study. We see that in Arabs the same thing happened, in the people of Nuzat the same thing happened, and if you see in current scenario, the same thing happened in the name of Islam right now. Same thing happens. People go to different graves, they do the same thing, they worship the grave, they ask the grave, we will see the condition and tradition what Arabs were doing at that time, and we can see the similarity between what they were doing at that time and they were thinking at that time and what people are doing right now. For example, the tradition and ceremonies of the worship, whenever you have new innovations in the deen, then it accompanies with new traditions and new ceremonies and new culture. So Amr bin Luhay al-Khuzai, when he took the idol from Syria, he invented some new traditions and new ceremonies, like new Eid, new festivals and everything. Whenever there is a new addition in deen, there is new addition of ceremonies. So what would have some feature of their worship of idols? Self-devotion to the idols, like the monks. They will go in front of the idol and they become mujawir, or self-devote themselves to the idols. So they will just stay there and live on the money of the people who come to those idols, and they feed them. Seeking refuge with them, with the idols, acclamation of their names, calling for their help in hardship, supplication to them for fulfillment of wishes, hopefully that the idols would mediate with Allah for the fulfillment of the people's wishes. So we see the same claims when we go to those grave worshippers or those people. They'll say the same thing. We do not worship them. We hope that these idols, who are righteous people, maybe they would mediate with Allah for them. So same thing, they were doing the same thing. They would not say that these idols are basically Allah or creator. Rather, they say that these are the righteous people and they will mediate for them. So number 2, performing pilgrimage to the idols, circumrotation around them, self-abasement, and even prostrating themselves before them. We see in many parts of the world that people go to those graves, they perform Hajj over there, they circumambulate around those graves, and they do the same rituals as we do in Hajj and Umrah on those graves. So same thing at that time. The history always repeats itself. The same action, and the result is the same. Seeking favor of idols through various kinds of sacrifices and immolation, which is mentioned in the Quran verses وَمَا زُبِحَ عَلَى النُّصُبِ, and that which is sacrificed on a nusub. So they will they put some sacrifices on immolation on those in front of those idols. They will sacrifice their animals in the name of those idols. So which Allah says that in Quran, that eat not of that meat on which Allah's name has not been pronounced at the time of slaughtering. So which is now haram, that you cannot eat any meat which is slaughtered in the name of any idol or anybody else except Allah. Number 4, similarly, consecration of certain portion of foods, drink, cattle and crops to idols. So similarly, they would consecrate or reserve some food for idols and some food for Allah. They would say, okay, this food is for Allah, we reserve it, we are not going to eat it, and this food is for those idols. But what happens whenever they need the food, what they'll do, that whatever the food reserved for Allah, they eat it from it or take it from it, but they do not touch the food from idol. So they were very confused, and they always see the religion, they always like to change the religion at their will. Dedication of certain animals, so they would dedicate certain animals in the name of idols and leave them. They would not eat from their meat, and this is all those self-made rituals, self-made innovation in their religion. So there are many Quranic verses given which will explain what were happening at that time. So it has been authentically reported that such superstitions were first invented by Amr bin Luhay. So these are all created or invented by the same person. But at that time, Arabs believed that such idols of hidden gods would bring them near to Allah and lead them to Him and mediate with Him for the sake, to which effect the Quran goes, ما نعبدهم إلا ليقربونا إلى الله زلفى. We worship them only that they may bring us near to Allah. So they think that, again, we discussed before, that they are not God, they are not the creator, but they are righteous people, and they will bring them close to Allah, which Allah explains later on. وَيَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ مَا لَا يَضُرُّهُمْ وَلَا يَنْفَعُهُمْ وَيَقُولُونَ هَؤُلَاءِ شُفَعَاؤُنَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. And they worship besides Allah things that hurt them not, nor profit them, and they say, these are our intercessors with Allah. Another divinatory tradition among the Arab was casting of Islam. So the lots or the draws of the arrows. So they were very superstitious, as we know that whenever you change the religion, you become polytheist. You think anyone is creator than Allah, then you become superstitious. So the same thing happened to them. Whatever they would do, they will go for those the lots, the draws. They will if I want to do that or not, it should be good or not, they will draw lots, they will draw cast. So they were relying on those things. They will draw arrows, and arrow would say yes, you should do that. If arrow said no, you should not do that. And they were also very much reliant on the soothsayers or astrologers. So whenever they need to know something about the future, they will go to those soothsayers. Those soothsayers or kahin will tell them, I have a jinn who's subservient to me, he tells me about the future. So they really believe them, and they go to them for all those all those information. And similarly, they go to astrologers for such information. So they were very superstitious by nature, and superstition was rampant at that time. People of pre-Islamic period, whilst believing in superstition, they still retain some of the Abrahamic traditions, such as devotion of the holy sanctuary. So it's still, although the religion is really corrupted and adulterated, but still some part of Abrahamic religion was kept intact. That was the Hajj and the Umrah. The people still go to Kaaba for Hajj and Umrah, and still circumambulate around Kaaba, and still go to Arafat and Muzdalifah. But that was the main rituals were not changed, but the Quraysh or the people of the Makkah changed some part of the rituals. What they would say, that since we are the superior, or rather we are the custodians of Makkah, We do not need to go to outside of Makkah. We stay in Makkah, and all the people coming outside of Makkah, they can go to Arafat and outside Makkah, wherever they want to go. But if the people of Makkah or Quraysh, they don't need to go there. So another adulteration or corruption in that ritual was they ordered pilgrims coming from outside Makkah to circumambulate Al-Kaaba in Quraysh uniform clothes. So they would say that the clothes, the people coming out of Makkah, the clothes are dirty from sins, so they should not circumambulate around Kaaba in those clothes. So they have to buy clothes from Quraysh. And those who could not afford that, they had to go tawaf or circumambulate Kaaba in without clothing. They had to go naked. And the women, they had to go. They just wear a very small shirt, and they had to go circumambulate. So this is the corruption. The way they corrupted the religion. And also they think that since they are in the state of pilgrimage, they are not allowed to go into their houses from the doors, from the front. If they are in the form of pilgrim during Hajj, they must go in their houses from the backs, which is mentioned in Quran that وَلَيْسَ الْبِرُّ بِأَنْ تَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ زُهُورِهَا وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ مَنِ اتَّقَى وَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ أَبْوَابِهَا وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. It is not albir, piety, that you enter the houses from the back, but albir is the equality of the one who fears Allah. So enter houses through their proper doors and fear Allah, that you may be successful. Such was the religious life in Arabia: polytheism, idolatry, and superstition. Later on it talks about Judaism, Christianity. We already talked about it, the same thing. So the religious situation of the Arabs was very extremely bad. The polytheist, as we discussed, the superstitions was rampant. There were many idols in Makkah. There was at the time of Fath Makkah, conquest of Makkah, there was 360 idols in and around Kaaba. So the situation was extremely bad. They plunged in disobedience and ungodliness and developed certain peculiar religious superstition. Judaism turned into abominably hypocrisy and league with hegemony. So what rabbis used to do, they used to give fatwa at their will. What people come, they are more interested in money and power. So people come to them for any problem. They would just tell them whatever brings them money. So they would just give fatwa at their will. They do not like to consult the book for any of those type of commandments. And Christianity at that time, it became all pure polytheism. The concept of Trinity and concept of Jesus being God, it was rampant. And Arabs, basically those Arabs which accepted Christianity, they did not see much difference between the polytheism, the shirk or mushrikeen, and the Christianity. They just changed the religion for just the name, for the sake of it. They did not see much difference in those two religions. So inshallah, when there are corruption in religion, definitely it has a direct impact on the social life. So inshallah, in our next talk, we'll talk about the aspects of pre-Islamic Arabian society. So what were the social and moral values of that Arabian society. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.